The rumor mill continues to heat up. The Red Sox are targeting a righty bat, and these guys are a few of the candidates. Welcome back, everybody, to Red Sox Digest. I'm Evan Sharrard. Today, we're going to be breaking down some of the options the Red Sox have at the deadline to bring in a righty bat and some of the fits these guys are going to have and the future if they were trade for some of these guys. So hello everyone, I'm Evan Sharrard. Welcome back to Red Sox Digest. Make sure that you subscribe so that you can stay tuned to all the latest Red Sox news. Trade deadline's just 4 days away. You wouldn't want to miss anything with the Red Sox, especially if you're a fan. So let's get right into some of these fits, some of these options. Let's take a look. We're going to go to our graphics tab right here. And Justin Turner is our first guy. And before we really get too deep into this, there was a report from Nesson that really got me into this. I'll show you that really quickly once we're done talking about him. But Justin Turner this season is having a down year. He was a Red Sox last year. He was maybe the most clutch player on the team. Really a reason why the Red Sox were close to competing for a playoff spot. I emphasize close because this team just didn't have it last year, and they do certainly have it this year because they couldn't pitch last year, even though their offense was electric. So Justin Turner, he really excelled in Fenway Park. His walk-up song was Boston by Augustana, which is all about a West Coast kid coming out to Boston, and he was a Dodger for many years, and he went into Boston. He was really a great fit on the team. The fans loved him. He loved it in Boston. He said at the end of last season that he would love to be in a Red Sox uniform next year. It didn't work out that way, but he would be an easy piece to grab. He's 39, so you're not going to get much for him in return if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. And you take a look at his stats. He's underperforming this year. He's grounded into some of the most double plays in the league, and his OPS plus is 1 point below average. 100 is average. Anything above is above. Anything below is below. So Turner would be a good option for a budget. And the next option we have here is Eloy Jimenez, a very different type of player. This guy is about just as athletic as Justin Turner, but he has the future in front of him. Eloy Jimenez hit 30-plus home runs once in his career and was a highly touted prospect coming out for the Chicago White Sox alongside the Tim Andersons and the Luis Roberts of the worlds, the Michael Kopechs, and he's still sticking around on one of the worst teams in baseball. And although he's under contract for a few more years, this would be a guy that if the Red Sox want to build for the future as well, they want that upside. Eloy Jimenez might be worth bringing in if the White Sox are really willing to deal him away. He's a guy who's had better discipline in the past, and it's possible that even though he's getting on at a 297 clip, it's possible that he can play a lot better than he is right now with a new scenery. So 83 OPS plus, that's 17 below average, but this guy has the age on his side and the upside on his side. He's a righty bat. He could excel in Fenway Park. Let's take a look at our next player who I think a lot of fans will be excited to see on this list, J.D. Martinez. And now I get it. The Mets are in a playoff position. They're going to be pushing. J.D. Martinez could play a big role in that. But J.D. Martinez is also 36 years old, and the Mets could get a young prospect in return for Martinez, which could help out. It's not like Martinez isn't replaceable as just a DH, really. He doesn't play well out in the outfield, and Martinez would bring one of the best bats on the market to the Red Sox. He has that power. He is a 40-plus home run hitter multiple times in his career. He drove in over 100 last year with the Dodgers. Martinez in the right spot is one of the best hitters in all of baseball, even though he's 36 years old and past his prime. This guy hits like nobody else. He knows some of the guys around in the clubhouse. He knows AC, Alex Cora. He would fit right in hitting dingers over Fenway Park and out onto Lansdowne Street once again. This one might not be as likely, but I think it's still a real possibility that JD could return to the Red Sox. Now let's move on to the next guy here, as we're going to be looking at Jorge Soler. And this guy's another booming power hitter who won a World Series MVP with the Atlanta Braves. Here he is in San Francisco, not playing as well as he could. He was crushing home runs with the Marlins a few years ago. He's got 11 so far. The Red Sox really need to improve that righty bat, but this guy could do just that in just towering shots over the monster in Fenway Park. He'd be a great fit there. Shouldn't be too expensive. The Giants aren't really contending right now, even though they're less than 10 games back in that wild card race. Soler could really provide a huge bat for the Red Sox. And I don't think that it would be all that unrealistic for them to go grab him, and I don't think they'd have to give up too much either. And lastly, we have Lane Thomas, who I think is a little bit different than the rest of these guys. Thomas is a little younger. He's not super young. He's just 1 year older than Eloy Jimenez, but he can play in the outfield for the Red Sox in those corner and center field positions. Lane Thomas had a better year last year as he broke out. And this would be another move for the future. Thomas is not as slow as some of these other guys are and does have some defensive upside that these other guys don't. His power numbers have not been quite as good, but in Fenway, they could potentially be great. So Lane Thomas, the last guy on here, I think they'd have to give up a little bit more for him for this Nationals team. But let's get back to this report here. This is the rumor that started it all a few days ago. The MLB trade rumors always release stuff like this. Red Sox are looking for a pitching help and a righty bat. And then there was this one that I saw that really piqued my interest, which was that Justin Turner to the Red Sox. Why should the Red Sox consider a reunion with Justin Turner? And I think it makes perfect sense. It's why I'm making this whole video. This Nesson post really got me started with this video idea. So now with all that being said, we broke down the options. Let's talk about the potential fit for each of these guys. So Lane Thomas will fit in the outfield when we need him, and he could be a plus defender at times and a younger player who can fit in as a power righty bat. Even though he hasn't shown it this year as much, he does have the power to crush those baseballs out onto Lansdowne Street and past the monster. So that's Lane Thomas. Let's move backwards back to Soler. This guy's going to be more of a DH. He's not good in the field. He's more of a power hitter as well. And I think specifically with Lane Thomas, you are looking at a future outlook with him being on the team for the next few years, maybe up to 5 if he really turns out and the Red Sox love him and they can keep him around. But Jorge Soler, he's more of a rental guy. This guy's really not much of the future. He's more of a right now guy who you hope that you don't have to give up much of the future for, and that doesn't really seem realistic for the Red Sox. Their current outlook and what the ownership has been saying. I don't really think it would make a lot of sense for the Red Sox to go and get Soler if they can't get him for a price that they like. This is not a guy you want to overpay for, to me. And then you have JD Martinez, who I think is another guy who you'd have to pay a little bit more than maybe you'd expect for a 36-year-old DH, because Martinez is valuable to the New York Mets right now. And the Mets have had young guys coming on who are starting to break out with Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos. And, of course, they've got the big money in Francisco Lindor playing short there. And Pete Alonso was talked about being moved sometime this season. I'm not sure if that'll happen, but we're talking about JD here. And I think even though he's potentially really important to both the Red Sox and the Mets, depending on which team he'd end up being on, this is a guy who would fit in for the next year or two. And really, I think it would be more about when Martinez decides to retire, because I don't think it would be far-fetched for the Red Sox to re-sign Martinez to a multi-year deal and say, hey, man, we love you, and you were a huge part of our success with Alex Cora at the beginning of his tenure in 2018, winning a World Series. The fans will never forget you. The fans love you. You really earned your Boston citizenship as a Red Sox, and that could be the future with JD Martinez. Now, a guy with a different outlook and a more possibly exciting future would be Eloy Jimenez, and he's more of a flyer of all these guys. I think he'd be more expensive than most of them because even though he hasn't played well, Eloy Jimenez is the one guy on this list that brings more potential and more control over his contract than I think anyone here. Jimenez is not a good defender, but he has shown that he can be an elite hitter. And if he brings that, he could be an elite hitter for the next 10 years. This guy could be one of the best batters that the major leagues see. And if the Red Sox were to get him, I think the ceiling would be, you're talking about a top 5 maybe number one DH guaranteed every single year, hitting 30, 40 home runs, which would be a huge, huge helping to this lineup. You imagine O'Neill batting second, Devers third, and Jimenez fourth, or maybe Jimenez third, O'Neill second, and Devers fourth, or you could put Devers in between those guys, so you have righty, lefty, righty. The options are really endless, but the low side is he never turns it around. The White Sox clubhouse environment has not turned him into the player or maybe the guy that you want in the clubhouse. Those are all negatives. He's had a really hard time playing in what has to be one of the worst clubhouses in baseball. So always rooting for these guys, and I would be excited to see Jimenez come on to the Red Sox. That's generally what I think the future would look like with him. Worst comes to worst, he wouldn't be on the team next year, and it wouldn't work out. And Justin Turner is a guy that I think would be a rental. He'd be here for a year, maybe two, if this guy really wants to move to never playing in the field again. He's just getting to that point where his body's going to start breaking down. Although another Boston athlete would beg to differ with that, Tom Brady, certainly one to keep his body in shape. So those are the options. That is the outlook, and that is the future. And really, with that being said, we've kind of talked about all that I have here today for you guys. So thank you for watching. We've got some righty bats that could be coming in to the Boston Red Sox. One last thing I wanted to add is with Lane Thomas, this guy is on here for a huge reason, and that is because of this right here. When we look at this guy's, he has some serious numbers against lefties. The Red Sox have struggled against left-handed pitching. That's why they're interested in a righty bat. And you look at his OPS plus against lefties is 161. Against righties, it's under league average at 77. So that's really incredible. Batting .329 versus lefties, that's fantastic. Granted, the sample size is nowhere near as large. There just aren't as many lefty pitchers. But with that being said, that's all I've got. Lane Thomas, good option. So are all these other bats. Excited for what's to come. Stay tuned for more. Trade deadlines in just 4 days. Thank you so much for watching. And once again, I am Evan Sharrard signing off for Red Sox Digest.